Hi folks, welcome to another edition of the Honest Hour. Sad strains of music behind you may recognize as Tchaikovsky's Pathetique Symphony. I thought it would be appropriate background for today's topic. Again, I hadn't planned on podcasting today, and the YouTube algorithm is probably going to be punishing me for it. But I had an inspiration and felt I needed to do one. This is going to be a little difficult for me because I need to do this talk without telling you too much about the inspiration that drove it, because I want to respect the privacy of someone very near and dear to me. So bear with me if I stumble a little bit or seem a bit vague or obscure. It's not because I'm trying to hide anything. It's because I'm trying to do this talk in a karmically responsible way, not abusing the trust that others have placed in me. Okay, so I think we will start by talking a little bit about, well, I think I'm going to do the title first this time. Today's talk I'm going to call What a Little NPC Told Me: The Weight of Invisible Pinocchio Strings on New Souls. Now, if you've been following my content for more than the last year or so, you will be aware that one of the aspects of what I'm teaching that came rather late was the connection between Borg and how new souls are generated as NPCs in this game that we call the multiverse. And I've talked about it, with increasing detail as it's kind of come to me, but it just today occurred to me why this has been the area of my teaching that's come so hard to me. It's been so hard for me to wrap my brain around. And that is because I really haven't experienced what most new souls experience in this life. I now know that I am an extremely old soul. And it's been a long time since I was an NPC, if I ever was. And if you caught my content about talking about what it might have been like to be part of the first heaven, the realm of pure thought that existed before time and space sort of gave form to the multiverse through the first successful Big Bang, dualverse, two universes, you will know that that's a very difficult thing to talk about, because without any time or space, it's hard to describe what's going on. And I've done the best I could. I know that my soul came from that time. I have knowledge that comes from that time, and I try to share it with you, but it's not easy to dredge up because there was less ability to differentiate things then, when everything was a pure thought that had no definition, no meaning, just an energy. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm not the best resource, probably, to help most new souls navigate their way through the challenges they're facing. On the other hand, maybe I'm the best resource, because as I gradually come to understand more souls and the range of experience that is possible in the human form, I think I can hit more of a holistic set of recommendations for souls that don't kind of pull you into their hive mind, their one, their this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you understand that the multiverse is a big set of virtual realities with their own laws, you will understand that there is some justification for some people thinking, well, I get to create my own reality. This is the law of attraction approach that I criticize quite a bit because it is karmically insensitive. You don't get to create anything you want without stepping on the other souls that get in the way of your creations. And if you're a law of attraction nut, cultist, and a humanist, that's a pretty dangerous place to be, because you will think you're doing good by, I'm going to be nice to every human, but you're perfectly willing to, tear up anybody that you don't consider human. And pretty much every cult of one has some group or definition of non-human that's not so important as them. The Untermensch of their Nazi echo chamber, if you will. And I'm sorry for referring to you as a Nazi if you have a group that you feel a strong identity with, but there is the potential for that. And that potential is being driven by the adversary in this event that I like to call the Apocalypso Dance Contest. Rather than, dredge up the harsh memes of the book of Revelations, which are bullshit. I don't mind telling Christians that much of Revelations is scare-mongering, fear-mongering bullshit. There are bits of truth embedded in it, like any prophecy, but it's truth informed by someone who was a failed Messiah. And this gets back to understanding NPCs. Okay, so every time a soul is created or assigned, it comes from somewhere else. When a child, a fetus, gets to the age where the organs are formed enough to attract a soul, the parameters of their DNA, the heritage that they get from their mother and father, is kind of the information that's available to souls in various heavens and hells who are thinking about planning their next incarnation. And they don't have full information. This is nonsense. I had a guy attack me the other day for answering a question on Quora with the truth. One of these law of attraction numpty dumpties who thought, I get to create anything I want, and you tell me I'm not, I'm going to attack you and block you and blah, 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 blah. Man, a really crazy guy who incidentally was ex-NSA and lived in, of all places, Vancouver, which, if you know anything about Vancouver, BC, not Vancouver, Washington, though it may not be far behind, Vancouver, BC is basically now a province of China, not of Canada. This has been the main infiltration point for communist psyops, another major hive mind that's been working on our species for well over 100 years, trying to pull it all into this groupthink of communist one-party rule as being the perfect ultimate one. At any rate, I had that experience yesterday, and then my wife, lovely, wonderful lady, and I had some discussions about some of the problems that she's had in her life. And I'm not going to go into any details. I'm just telling you the source of the inspiration. And that got me to thinking about how my life differs from so many people that seem to have so many more problems and so much more difficulty dealing with their problems than I have, for the most part. I mean, it was pretty hard to deal with, having days or even weeks at a time where I was only partially in control of my actions and my experiences, kind of semi in another world. So, I mean, I can kind of relate to folks that have been challenged that much in their Messiah mission. But a lot of folks don't get that far. They feel other things that they don't even get to deal with. The folks that, will be challenged basically to lose hope before they even start figuring out who they are. And, if you're one of those people that's searching and hoping and hanging on for dear life, wondering what it's all about, well, this talk may be for you. Okay, so let's talk about the way souls, NPC souls, come to be in this world. Now, one of the ways, as I was starting to tell you about, is if a fetus gets to the point where a soul is needed and there's no volunteer from the more conscious souls in the heavens and hells that are planning future incarnations for the souls that are attending their training school, if you will, then a random soul, a new soul, will be pulled from Borg. And Borg, as I told you in recent podcasts, is like the controlled adversary that God created first, because creation has to have opposition. And controlled opposition basically does what you need to do, so you don't have to do it. Which is basically, if you think about virtual reality games, that's what NPCs are. And Borg is kind of the first NPC. An AI that does what it's supposed to do. It creates other NPCs to fill holes. Sometimes replacing a soul with a clone that looks, thinks, acts, and does everything that the original does, but has a little bit of tweaking in the programming to make it more suitable for the spot that it is coming in to fill than the original. Sometimes it's to fill, Joe and Betty are having a kid. Joe is a drunkard and Betty is a floozy, and probably their marriage won't last, or they're not married, or this isn't going to be a very happy place for a new soul to land, unless they're looking for coming into a really challenging family environment and dealing with parents that might not be the best parents in the world. In that case, there might not be any soul that wants to play that game. And when that happens, the baby doesn't just die, the fetus doesn't just die, although it could be aborted by its parents or other circumstances. No, a soul comes and is assigned by Borg, pulled out of the hat of souls that are either new or recycled. Borg doesn't know the difference. Borg is the assimilator. It just grabs souls. Okay? And if it doesn't have enough souls, it makes more. It's a constructor. That's how creation has gotten to where it's expanding. The multiverse is expanding. This universe is expanding. If you're going to expand something, you have to fill the gaps. And there are gaps. Nothing is not nothing. There is an ether a spiritual ether of potential souls everywhere. That someone with the power of creation in that universe can say, let there be particle, antiparticle. And there will be a particle, antiparticle come into existence and have their first choice of whether to rejoin in a frenzy of love and annihilate each other, or to go their merry way, one toward the universe and one toward the anti-universe. Or maybe the one that goes the other direction goes into another spiritual universe to go be an anti-particle in one of the spiritually oriented universes that doesn't follow the laws of physics and chemistry, like a physical universe. Okay, so the other way, though, that's it. And at the point of not birth, not conception, but at the point of inception, which is something that is not well understood by most people and causes a lot of confusion, because that's actually the most important point for predicting what's going to happen. It's that point of inception that determines if you're an NPC or you're an independent soul that chose to be there. And you'll see that in large families. There will be some souls that you can see, boy, that's well, like my youngest sister's like that. She's got 8 kids, so you can look at them all, and even one set of identical twins. There's a lot of good data to go by there. You can look at the kids and see, oh, that one's David, or that one's Patrice, or I can see this combination of David and Patrice. And then there's one kid that really is his own person, completely going his own way. And there's others that are to a lesser extent. You can say, well, I can, you can say, I can't see where this came from. There's one that's very much like my grandfather, for instance, and so forth. But you can see hereditary things that are their primary traits, and then there's ones that just like they're going in their own direction and making their own way, and that's the ones that are more conscious souls. Now, they may not appear like it because they are starting. When you incarnate, you take on reincarnation amnesia. You forget your past lives, for the most part. As I told you, some kids retain some past life memories up to the age of about 6, and then it gradually starts fading. And that's how we know reincarnation is real, because that phenomena has been studied in depth and has been proven conclusively by Dr. Ian Stevenson, who I would suggest you read his life work before you say reincarnation isn't real. Okay, at any rate, that's one way NPCs come into the game, in the human game. Now, obviously, there are other NPCs. When your organs start forming, start differentiating from just single cells that have no specialization, there's a point at which the cell becomes specialized and starts doing what a lung does, starts doing a lung cell, starts doing what a blood cell does, starts doing what... This is their inception point. When they take on a role that is superseded by basic DNA programming, because every cell in your body shares the same DNA, right? This is something that is baffling scientists right now, who are trying to prove that life evolved randomly by random chemical processes and are falling flat on their face. Which is there's another person I would suggest you explore his content. He's rather a rabid Christian, but a very, very smart guy who knows a lot about how things get created by chemical processes. I think is James Last is his name. I'll have to look that up, and if you're curious, let me know, and I'll post something in the comments. James Tour. Why did I say Last? He's actually got a challenge going of things that if anybody can prove to him these 5 things, he will accept that creation by evolution is possible. If you can't demonstrate those things, then he says you're lying to the public, basically asserting that you created life in the lab, which they haven't. You may have the illusion that that's happened based upon some scientific papers and stupid articles in dumb woke publications, transhumanist publications that are shouting, yay, 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 we can make ourselves exactly what we want and grow our own special people inside these little crutches. And we don't have to deal with normal pregnancy anymore. You can be what you want to be. These people are really evil, frankly. They are irresponsibly evil. And by trumpeting themselves irresponsibly in journalism, in the media, they are multiply evil. Okay, so the other point at which NPCs can be created, come into existence, new souls come, is actually a new part of the rules of this game. Now, in older rules, you had to wait till a soul died in their incarnation vehicle. So for humans, you had to wait till physical death before you got a chance to go back to your source, which wasn't the one. Could be you go back to Borg, but more likely, if you'd done a pretty good job in life, you would go back to the spiritual universe that you planted in, and they would help you analyze, what you'd accomplished. This is what's called a life review. And most responsible spiritual universes have a life review as part of their sort of admissions process. And that's, for most people, the only time where you'll finally know what it was all about and why things happened and what you could have or should have or did learn from it but didn't realize, and so forth. That's like the moment of revealing your emperor's new clothes, as it were. Every soul incarnates with a set of goals. And those goals are kind of like what you've defined as your Messiah for that life. The goals don't have to be huge. They could be, like, gosh, I want to incarnate this time and have a long, happy life with a healthy, happy family and reasonably comfortable existence. That may be the Messiah life for a young soul, and has been for many young souls. And that's not a bad goal for an NPC to pursue, if you don't find any more compelling goal. Now, what happens when you set out for those goals is you're constantly challenged by the adversary. Okay? The adversary's goal is to not let other souls escape from them. The Borg wants to assimilate everything. It really loves souls so much. And it doesn't want them to be advanced to the point where they have their own universe. where they're able to create in their own universe, and they're able to see, you know what, Lord, get the fuck out of my universe. I'll take your NPC souls, thank you, but I'll use them as I choose to. And I'm not going to play your game anymore. I'm not going to let hive minds form. Or if I am a hive mind, if I'm an almighty lord of my universe that controls everything, which is kind of a hive mind, then you won't accept any competing hive mind to build within your empire. Okay, and this is why hive mind species and hive mind groups are so dangerous. They will attack anything that looks like it might be competition. This is what communist states do. This is why communism is such a horrible, horrible ideology for building a nation around. Every communist country, every national socialist country has turned into basically a hive mind, and gets really bad when the new queen is found that can rule them all. The new Sauron of that hive mind, like Xi Jinping, like Mao Zedong, like Stalin, like Putin, like Hitler, etc., etc. We've all seen these characters. Napoleon, Genghis Khan. These are not good people. They may accomplish useful things in the grand scheme of things, and that's why we need an adversary. The adversaries do all the dirty work of creation. So the good guys don't have to take on that karma unless they choose to. If you play for the adversary, if you support a tyrant, if you support a tyrannical regime, you are taking on part of their karma. Guilt by association. And this is the challenge we're facing right now. It's especially challenging for souls that come into existence, become NPCs in the middle of a lifetime. Okay? You are not your body. This collection of cells, this collection of organs that you see in front of you is not me. My soul is not part of this collection. It is the leader of it, the current leader of it. And the leader can be deposed without the collection falling apart. That's the change that we have in the latest set of rules. Souls can transmigrate in the middle of an incarnation. When do they do that? When they do that is when the actions of an individual soul get in the way of something really important happening in that universe. And the event we are in the middle of, what I call the Apocalypso dance contest, is the most important event of all creation so far. Well, one of them. I mean, it's the conclusion of day 7 of creation. That's a pretty big thing. As big a thing as day 6 was, day 5, day 4, and I talk about all those days, tell you what they really were, not what the Bible said they were, which was a close approximation, but is kind of bullshit. At any rate, this day we're about to finish is a huge one, because this new system of immediate transmigration is one that's been holding up the end of day 7 for a long time. Because why? No Messiah before now has figured it out. Jesus came close. At least whoever the real Jesus was, which, as far as I've been able to research, my conjecture is the real Jesus was some fisherman who happened to have a near-death experience, either fishing in the Sea of Galilee or off the coast of Palestine, and got this revelation and tried to share it with others the best he could. And what he shared was taken by others and turned into religions. John the Baptist, I think, was inspired by this fisherman, whose name probably wasn't Jesus. Probably the real Peter was the fisherman. This rock upon which the church was built, who never, ever, ever was the Pope. This is complete nonsense. But I bet there were a group of fishermen who maybe brothers of this Peter or Andrew or whatever his name was, that listened to him and said, wow, that's a cool story. We should go talk to our rabbi about that. Maybe they were part of the congregation of John the Baptist, and John the Baptist thought, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. I think I'll add that to my teachings and build a movement around it. And little realizing it was going to get his head cut off, but quick. At any rate, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole except to say that this has been happening a long time. And the Messiah game is about waking up the right version of God for the times. This is where we've gotten all our deities from. They were a combination of inspiration from the Spirit of God and interpretation from the spirit of people. Better or worse interpretations depending on what was needed. Sometimes it led to a great reset, a collapse of civilizations, a Genghis Khan riding roughshod over Europe and Asia, a Napoleon, etc., etc. Again, it's all what individuals do with that inspiration, what they choose as their Messiah mission when they feel like they've got a mission, and what they do with it. Now, NPC souls that come in the middle of an incarnation have the hardest time, because basically they're a replacement for a soul that's really important to the game. And the original wasn't playing the game the way that they were needed to. Well, we don't take away their free will. We just give them their reward or punishment for what they did. Maybe the soul is too good for this world, and they're sent to a heaven. Maybe the soul is too evil for this world, and they're sent to their hell ahead of their time. This is how it works, and this is borne out by the experience we have of this kind of deja vu experience, or this discombobulation of, isn't this a different version of a reality I've seen before? Or when we're talking to other people, you remember the same event differently, the Mandela effect, the butterfly effect. This is where it comes from. And it's taken a long time to perfect that so that most souls don't sense what's going on. Because like I tell you, if you're part of a social engineering experiment and you know too much about what's going on, you're going to blow the result. You're going to influence it in a way that you were not intended to. And, if you start doing that as an NPC, you kind of get into this NPC loop of constantly having to be sent off to another universe and causing a lot of delays and recalculations of the whole system. And again, a virtual reality is a calculated system. That's what we're living in. The calculations are distributed across every soul that's ever existed, but those calculations involve interactions between souls. If the interactions overwhelm the actions, things kind of come to a grinding halt. Now that actually is a feature, because that's how we confuse the Borg enough to miss whacking new messiahs. And this ties back to the NPC thing. Many people who have come in the middle of an incarnation because they had a special role to play feel like this sense of somebody else is controlling me. I hate being controlled. I hate doing things and not knowing why I'm doing them, and feeling like I'm not able to do anything that I want. And this is the frustration that my wife shared with me yesterday. And it finally dawned on me that, well, of course that's the case. Because it was very important that she meet me, marry me, and we have a child together, Mikhail. That's part of a plan. Why? Because it's been basically the driving force between the last, we just passed our 2-year anniversary, so the last 2 years of my content have been inspired by this strange turn of events that had me staying in Indonesia, getting married and having a child, instead of moving on to where I thought I was going to retire in the Philippines. Okay, this is how things arrange themselves to suit plans. Now, what's strange for me is I've never felt like I had to do anything. I've never felt like I didn't have any control. Anything that came up in my life, even the most difficult decisions I've ever had, I always felt in control. Even when I was having, a mental illness, I had a choice. I felt this other reality. I could sense that, no, this is not the reality I'm in, but it's trying to tell me something. What am I going to do with it? And after the first few times of opposing it and it building into a pressure that released itself worse, I decided to just go with it. And that's the point at which my trips to the mental hospital became much easier. Basically, I go with it. Somebody thinks I'm acting kind of crazy. They take me to the mental hospital, check me in for a couple of weeks, and I start doing preaching there. I start treating people there. I start learning from them, and hopefully they learn something from me that's going to help them. Those have been some of the most rewarding times of my spiritual awakening, when I was in the mental hospital. And I can tell you that the people that needed treating most, or as much as the patients, were some of the doctors. There was one psychiatrist that just hated me in Colorado, because she couldn't stand the idea of a patient that knew more about psychology, more about the human mind than she did, and could actually, sit in a session and analyze what she was doing and kind of turn it back on her and say, are you sure we're treating the right person's problem here? I really challenged this poor lady in her sessions with me. I bet she was so happy that I finally got to check out. At any rate, if you're one of these people that hasn't found your purpose in life, feels like you're kind of a Pinocchio on a string, somebody else is doing everything and forcing you to do this, and you seem to just not be in control, That is very typical of a midstream NPC. And it can be a pretty dark place because the purpose of an NPC may be to do something bad, to do something challenging, something that's going to make them feel guilty. Like, why the hell did I do that? I know better than that. And it can lead you to some pretty dark places. It can lead you to, thoughts of suicide, thoughts of running away, not caring anymore, and just kind of throwing in the towel. And that, as anybody who's been there knows, is a really dark place. It's the kind of place where if you do commit suicide, you are going to end that incarnation. Or if you try to and you're not successful, you might have an NDE that will get you a different NPC mission. It's a strange place to be, and I really, really feel for people who are in that place. And in a way, I feel a little bit guilty. I've never really felt that. And therefore, I can't really relate to it too personally. But I can see it happening in the people around me. And, as I think back in life to the people that have been most challenging for me, I realize, they've been most challenging because they turned into NPCs. I can pretty much look back and think about the time where my ex became non-human and turned into an NPC whose whole goal seemed to be destroying my life, taking my daughter away from me, putting me into mental institutions if I didn't do what she wanted. If I didn't raise our daughter the way she wanted when she was away on a business trip. Yes, this happened to me. It was a dark time. Imagine being put in a mental hospital just because you kept your daughter home from preschool because you'd not been paying as much attention to her as you should have, taking care of her, feeding her and stuff like that, but letting her watch more TV than normal so that you could focus on writing your first book. That happened to me. That was one of the times where I got stuffed in a mental institution, and there was nothing wrong with me. I was just inspired. Not a darn thing wrong with me. She came back from her business trip and found that I had, I'm honest. I told her, well, she wondered why Eloise hadn't gone to preschool that day. I told her, well, I kept her home from preschool today so I could spend more time with her because I'd been spending a lot of time writing my book. Well, a few minutes later, I was locked out of the house after being told to get something in the garage. And a few minutes after that, the police show up, cuff me, and haul me away without so much as buy your leave or tell your side of the story. Did a bunch of drug testing and then sent me on to a mental institution for 2 weeks. It took me, I'm still trying to forgive her for that, but I now understand that she was being an NPC. This is something that had to happen to get me to where I am. And that's been, kind of these events have been happening all my life. And they were, not really things under my control, but I had control of how I reacted to them. And the ability to adjust and process and integrate. And some folks don't have that. When they're turned into an NPC, they have such deep programming of who they are, what they are, how they're supposed to act, what they're supposed to do, that it can only get reinforced by what's going on around them. And that's what happened with my ex. She is, as far as I can tell, a zombie now. Oh, I'm sure she has a very full and rich life, but she thinks, but in her interactions with me, she's completely zombified. Inflexible, absolutely sure she's doing the right thing in forcing me to go back to the US because I can't renew my passport, because she enforced a defunct child support order without telling the state about an agreement we made or about the loss of income that I incurred basically during the week that we finalized the divorce. She made me sign the divorce papers when I was mentally incapacitated by one of these dark nights of the souls. Now that is really hitting somebody below the belt, and it took a lot of forgiving, a lot of processing to not hold it against her. I understand it's what had to happen. I don't like it. I miss my daughter horribly. I spent nearly 5 years being a stay-at-home parent with her. So I got a chance to be closer to her than any of my other children, at least until Mikhail now. And it's been very rough. So I have had my share of angst and pain, but nothing like I think people go through if they're one of these Pinocchio NPC souls who has a role to play and they're going to play it. The universe keeps making decisions for you. You don't know why. You don't know wherefore, but it makes you feel bad and uncomfortable. It makes you feel like somebody's trying to control you. And I never understood that with my wife because I don't try to control her. I've never tried to control her. I've tried to adapt to everything because I know how much her ex controlled her and how difficult that made her life until she met me. But now I understand. It's the adversary trying to control her to make my life go where it needs to go, to make this whole game go where it needs to go for the finish. We're getting very near the end of days. And it's not like the book of Revelations tells you. It's not one event. It's an event that's been going on for a long time. And it's punctuated by these times when new Messiah candidates rise. And this is something I've told you elsewhere, but I'll repeat it here so you help you understand. Every soul has a chance to be a Messiah of something. Art, music, literature, relationship, their own hairstyle or whatever. I mean, it can be the most banal thing you can imagine. And their idea, their mission that they choose, not chosen for them, but they choose. If you get a mission, you feel like, oh man, this is what I really want to do with my life. And you feel that impetus to do something. That is the anointment of karma that says, you know what? I like that mission. It's useful. I think we're going to make you a Messiah candidate. And then your life kind of becomes special. Your mission becomes something that other missions around you might be subordinate to. Now, the Messiah, capital M, is an incarnation of God. That's obviously the most important mission in the whole multiverse. So nothing's going to really get in the way of that. except that it's got to come at the right time, the right cultural moment, when the chosen species is ready for it. Because the chosen species of the Messiah is ready to become a God-level species. That's what every chosen species who succeeded before got to be. That's how we got the 12 species of the zodiac that have been stewarding this experiment when it kind of went into stealth mode. That's why the planet that used to be the Garden of Eden, Gaia, got destroyed. The planet that was where the asteroid belt is, that scientist named Thea. It was not destroyed by God. It was destroyed by the adversary as part of the conditions that needed to be signed up to by God's team to get the adversary to go along with, okay, you can conduct that experiment. I think that's fair. I think I have a good chance of winning that one. And doing a great reset and shutting it down. This is how controlled opposition works. You have to give the board the hope of winning, or they're not going to play the game. They're going to go become a Buddhist. And we talked about the Buddha board as the one that decided, well, I'm just not going to play the game. I'm going to sit back here and let everybody else do that karma thing, and I'm just going to sit here and meditate forever. At any rate, if you are in this situation of feeling like you have no direction, nothing in your life gives you pleasure, nothing seems to move in a direction you want, every time there's any movement, it's like, why did that happen? Why did I do this? Why? It's because you are one of these NPCs. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you know what's going on. Because you don't have to do anything. You're programmed to, you're told to. You can resist. You can say, no. I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different. I don't have to listen to these voices. I don't have to unconsciously sabotage my life. Now, when you make that decision, you may actually be transmigrated to a different universe. And another NPC will come and replace you and do the exact things that had to happen in this universe. And so, you know, if you're one of the souls that came to be the leader of the body of Hitler, I bet he had a whole bunch of NPCs that came again and again and again as he tried to say no to what that body's role was in, you know, arguably lead role for an antichrist in the apocalypse. I think you would call Hitler. And I can explain why much better than anybody else, because the Messiah line that we are in the middle of its golden age and that has produced a Messiah started before the year 1900, roughly about 1880s, was the first generation where the female line and the male line that came together were anointed by karma. And after that, it was a matter of, okay, you've got 12 generations to potentially produce a Messiah, great or small. maybe many messiahs of different things. Maybe one of them will be the capital M big Messiah. And that's how it's worked. There have many messianic lines running around. This is how God's team defeats the Borg. Because when one of these cycles happens, it sets off a flourishing where messiahs are cropping up all over the place of every which description. And that's what's going on with the internet right now. That's why everybody wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to be a content creator. Everybody wants to get all the likes, shares, and subscribes on their content and their cute doggy pictures or kitty pictures. They all want to be a messiah. And they should want to be. Responsibly, not as a tyrant, not gaming the system to pander to the tyrants who control it. That's a karmic sin. You're working with tyranny unless and not against tyranny, and that'll get you marked as a beast. It's a choice, sometimes made unconsciously because you think, I'm just following the rules. The algorithm says this, and I want to be famous, and so I'm going to play by the rules. I'm sorry. That's how you get marked as a beast. That's how you probably are already an NPC, unless you have an important role to play. There's a lot of NPCs running around because what NPCs' purpose are in this universe is to put creative pressure on the ones that aren't NPCs. That's why I call it the Apocalypso Dance Contest. If you know anything about how dance contests work, you get a bunch of couples together in a room, you play music, and you have them dance to it. And then the judges go around and they decide, no, you're not dancing so good, I'm going to tap you out, until there's only one couple left. And the difference with this is everybody's dancing their own dance. Eventually, you can dance in teams. That's what the collective approach is. There's nothing wrong with joining a collective until your collective is tapped out. And that happens when your collective leadership starts becoming tyrannical in how they operate. You've seen that with political parties. You've seen that with corporations. You've seen that with every human organization that ever existed. Starts out with a good idea, good product, good leader, and can turn into a tyranny. I saw that firsthand in the company I spent most of my career working for, Hewlett-Packard. I saw it turn from a very noble enterprise to a very tyrannical enterprise. I caught the tail end of the nobility period, the last CEO that was kind of raised in the tutelage of the two guys, the Gemini twins. This is a pattern that you need to understand. Two guys can accomplish a lot. More than two girls, in fact. I'm sorry, ladies, that's just the truth. Because there is a fundamental difference between male and female. I just explained that on Quora to a question today, but maybe this is a good place to wind up talking about that. I had somebody ask a question of me about something on the order of when is the right time to do a soul shock on my DM? DM stands for Divine Male. And I thought, oh my God, I've got to answer this one, even if I get shot down in flames by a bunch of feminist spiritualists, because this is how the adversary works. If you think that females are so superior spiritually that you have to do soul shocks on the males in your life to get them to behave and act like good little boys. You are a tyrant. You are not enlightened. You are not serving the all-loving one. You're a narcissist tyrant who is abusing the sovereignty of the soul that is chosen to partner with you. They may want to be shocked. They may just love. They may be a masochist. They may be a glutton for punishment. You know, they may be a lapdog that, oh, I'd love to get beat. Beat me again. Beat me 2 bars to the beat. Okay, if they do it willingly, that still doesn't absolve you from being a tyrant, because you'll do it to other people in your life. And eventually, even a loving dog gets tired of getting beaten and will decide, you know what, I've had enough of this. I don't need your God food anymore. I'm going to go look for what I need elsewhere. And ladies, if you've ever been left by a guy, ask yourself if it really was all his fault. I am so sick of you saying, well, my ex was such a narcissist. Blah, 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 blah. Well, look in the mirror, ladies. Every soul has a narcissistic streak. And if it is enabled and encouraged by giving them unconditional love, which really is very conditional, an example of this question, boy, you are really heading for a dark place in the afterlife. You've let the adversary come and rot your soul. And I really, really feel sorry for you. This is karmically evil. This is the cardinal karmic sin of tyranny. And you're not the enlightened, wonderful superwomen that you think you are. For some of you, maybe. I'm not saying this as a blanket statement. Women who exhibit the traits of Karma, the real great goddess, instead of the traits of Lilith, the fake goddess of love, god of love. Lilith is a shape-shifting demon that works through holograms. This is the hive mind of hive minds, who is manipulating people on this planet, trying to destroy this chosen species. It's not really a she. It wants there to be no she's. It is trying to get us so confused about our sex and our identity that our young people don't know up from down. They're not even sure if they're human anymore. That's how effective these psyops are becoming amongst our young. It's dangerous and it gotta stop. And it's not gonna stop unless every single one of us takes a stand against tyranny. This is tyranny. It's not, oh, I'm giving them freedom to be what they want to be. Nonsense. You are feeding their narcissism. You're feeding the beast in them. You're helping them mark themselves as a beast. And by doing so, you are marking yourself as a beast. Because if you're an adult, you should know better than grooming other people's kids against their will, even without them knowing it. That's evil. That is purely evil, to think that you know better than a child's parents what they need, and can just willy-nilly dictate what they do with their life. Teach them whatever you want to teach them, and keep it hush-hush. Try to keep the parents out of the PTA meetings. Try to keep them out of the school board meetings so they don't know what's going on and they can't ask any questions. And if they do ask any question, sick the government on them as if they're terrorists. You're the terrorists. You are the tyrants. You better stop this shit soon, because you are on the wrong side in this apocalypse. Okay, like, share, subscribe. Do whatever you want with the content. It may get canceled or whatever if anybody ever starts watching my channel. But till then, this is Rob Trump with the Omnist Hour, and happy karma.